Hello everyone, this is part 2 of my ARAM Mayhem Augment rankings, where I'm going to cover every gold augment. Hope you enjoy. So now let's do gold augments. Starting with S tier, we have Executioner, which is very powerful. Executioner is pretty much Katarina passive, except it just gives you everything. It gives you 10% increased damage to enemies that are low, but the big thing is that scoring a takedown resets the cooldown of all your basic abilities. So a takedown includes assists, and this means you can reset your abilities like 4 times in a fight. This is incredibly impactful on champions that have certain key cooldowns that are really hard to play on. So this isn't as good on champions that have low cooldowns, but on something that like a Veigar, for instance, you can reset your cage, and that is incredibly strong. Something like Samira, you can refresh your wind wall, stuff like that. There's a lot of champions that have something that they can play around that's like abusable. Champions that can just outright kill with that can be really good. So like Irelia, for instance, like you get your other abilities, so you can get, like, even if you mess up, if you get at least an assist, you'll get your W and your E back, so you can get back onto them. Like, and your Q, like you can just start over from scratch. Jax, you can counter strike again. There's a lot of examples. I'm just kind of like looking for something that's like super busted with it. But the point is, on most champions, you can get a pretty good amount of value from it. And like the game isn't balanced around these abilities being cast multiple times in a fight, which is like Executioner, like it's just game winning. Next we have Searing Dawn, which it's niche, but in the champion, like on the champions that you can take it on, it's really good. The main reason it's so good is because it doesn't have like a real cooldown. So you get Leona passive. Basically, anytime you damage an enemy with a spell, you can, like, the next ally that hits them does a decent chunk of magic damage. So basically, if you have the means to rapidly apply it, that's really good. If you have an ally that can rapidly proc it, it's also really good. So like the Exodia combo is where you have something like Brand plus like Swain or something, and you'll like chain proc the Searing Dawn and just rack up thousands of damage in a fight instantly. If you both have it, you're literally going to one-shot everything in range within like a couple seconds, because it just procs so frequently. So yeah, all these champions are really good appliers of it, and then if you have like any kind of like consistent damage, any kind of way to proc it off cooldown, then it becomes really strong. Like in the right games, you can get like 20,000 damage for free, and anytime I have the chance, I'll usually take it because it's most likely going to be better than anything else. Next, we have Critical Healing. This augment is insane because of specific item synergies. So what Critical Healing does is it allows your heals and shields to crit. You get some bonus crit strike chance. So on its own, it's not that good, but you have the ability to buy a couple items that will help quite a bit. Yeah, like Rite of Ruin, for instance, is an AP crit item. When you cast an ability, you have a chance to shield, which is really good on enchanters because that multiplies with your heal shield power, and it gives you crit strike chance, and it gives you bonus crit. So with just this item, you can get to like 70% crit. And then on top of that, some champions can also build Atmas, which is also really good. This just gives you health, but on some champions like Soraka or Karma, it's really good to have this because they have a lot of scaling with health. Like Karma can build tanky, and then Soraka, this helps her get to the Warmog's threshold. Between the two items, you can get to 100% crit, and then afterwards you just buy like Warmogs or whatever, and then you have a really fat a normal like crit champion, it's not even that bad, because if you have like lifesteal. But yeah, mostly for this synergy, it's just the best thing you can hit on an enchanter by far. Next we have its killing time. So the way that this works is that when you cast your ult, you apply death mark to everyone, and then after 5 seconds, you'll deal damage based on how much damage you've done. It has an 8-second cooldown, so pretty much, if you're like an AoE champion, if you're not gonna like one-shot, if you're not gonna front load or overkill something, this is really good. This follows the same rules as like any kind of bleed or any like delay thing that I would describe in like TFT, where if you have consistent damage during that 5-second thing, and you're not like, okay, if you kill them, they're not gonna take the bonus damage. So you want to maximize the amount of damage you're not losing, in which case an ult being balanced around its like itself, like just the way the game works, it's better on like consistent damage. That way you're not like, you'll get the damage. I don't know how to describe it, but basically it's really good. There's a lot of champions that can use this well. It's like, if I go to like an example, we have like, I mean, like Aatrox, Annie, Brand, Zeri. Like it doesn't even have to be ultimate damage. It's just any damage. Like after you cast your ult, after 5 seconds, all damage you do is gonna be multiplied by 40%. Like you just get that extra proc. And there's a lot of champions that you can just cast your ult and then start doing a lot of damage. And those are the champions you want to build it on, which is, I mean, a lot of them. Like I think this is really underrated, especially because this is balanced around arena. But in ARAM, it's really easy to like rack up more damage because you're hitting a lot. You have the opportunity to hit a lot more enemies. Next, we have Overflow. This is like a risky one, but it's very, very good in the right scenarios. It doubles your mana costs, but it also gives you percentage damage and healing shielding based on your like max mana. It's really good on enchanters because with how much mana regen you have, you normally won't have an issue. So this is just a straight up like multiplier. It's not like a great one, but it's a solid multiplier on enchanters. On last chapter Roa users, this is really OP because you're not really gonna run out of mana anyway. But this will give you like a really, really strong multiplier. This is just like a 30-40% multiplier on like anything you do. So if you have this, like if you obviously you have to have enough mana regen to fund this, but if you play into it, this is just a multiplier that's like much better than any of the other ones in the game. With enough mana items, you basically have Jewel's Gauntlet. Next we have Upgrade Infinity Edge. So this one is like a little weird. I'm not super high on most of the upgrade ones, but this one specifically is really, really strong. Like there's just so many things going for it that I want to talk about like each thing like one at a time. So one, you start off with 500 gold, which can be pretty good because like this lets you have like a really good start in the early game. On top of that, you get 25% crit. The next thing to consider is that Infinity Edge is a core item on pretty much any crit champion, meaning you're always going to buy it anyway. You're not giving anything up. Like you're not giving anything up by taking this. On top of that, the way it works is that you have a multiplier, like you get your Infinity Edge and then you get 40% bonus crit damage, and then on top of that you have this Excoriate passive, which gives you bonus crit strike damage varying between 0 and 50, and like that amount scales with your crit chance. So like pretty much it's like if you build full crit, and which it's not going to be hard to do because between IE and this you're going to have 50% crits. So like you should rush Infinity Edge if you have this, by the way. But basically you're going to have like basically 25% damage multiplier on top of like the free crit strike chance, which is pretty good. But then on top of that, with how much value Infinity Edge has just overall for its crit damage, like being the only source of that, it's become really, really strong when you have other augment synergies. So if you have something like Jewel's Gauntlet or Vulnerability or anything of that nature, this is just like insane because you're like it's just multiplier on multiplier on multiplier on stuff that doesn't really, it's not balanced around that way. Like you can make your items do like 210% bonus damage. You can make all your abilities do like the same amount, like 200 something bonus damage. So if you have the right setup, this is just absolutely insane. It has too many synergies that like there's really zero reason to ever pass it up because on its own it's quite strong, but it also just has the chance to instantly win you the game. Because I think I've gotten this on like Smolder, and I've gotten Jewel's Gauntlet, and basically my Qs were doing like 2000 damage flat. So yeah, it's insane. Next we have Rabble Rousing, and this is one where it's like it's very niche, but there's some champions that can abuse this too well. So Rabble Rousing heals you for like based on anytime you cast an ability. So if you're a champion that can cast abilities really quickly, this is really strong. So something like a Cassiopeia, you can spam your E and you're basically immortal. Something like Rise, you can kind of spam everything and you're kind of immortal. There's probably other ones I just haven't thought of. Like on a champion with average cooldowns, this isn't that great, but this fundamentally breaks some champions that, yeah, like game warping if you can get it. Next in A tier, it's a little bit more niche or a little bit less high roll, but they can be really good. We have All For You. This is a heal shield multiplier. It's just really good. I think it's just a little bit worse than critical healing, but it's pretty good because it multiplies with your heal shield power. This isn't like additive, so it scales really well. And I don't think you're ever going to complain about having this if you're actually playing around having heal shield power. Like if you're an enchanter that isn't like super heal shield focused, then it's not like as good. But if you're like a Soraka, like a Karma, like a Sona, like if you have like actually like heal value, then this is just really high amount of numbers. Next we have bread and butter and bread and jam. And I want to differentiate that from bread and cheese, which I think is probably a little bit worse than the other ones, about all of them at the same time. But basically, W cooldown is generally the worst. It's usually like a utility ability. I think bread and cheese is really good because this is normally like your move speed ability slash like whatever, like the champions that have like a dash. Having that dash up is really good. Bread and butter is usually your main damage ability, so that's usually really nice to have. This is a bit more situational. Some champions can use it pretty well, but it depends. However, in most cases, these like you can't really go wrong with having these if you have a decent ability to play around. And most champions can work with them. Like if you get one of the bread ones, like you just have to think like it's never really bad to take. And kind of similar to the Executioner, some abilities aren't meant to have such a low cooldown that this helps out like a lot. It has a lot of influence. Next we have Celestial Body. I think this one's really underrated just because of it's just really strong early. And in the early game, you can build a lot of momentum and you can snowball pretty easily because 1250 is a pretty high amount of health. Obviously, like you're not really that worried about damage if you're taking this, so the drawback isn't that significant. But it has really good synergy with health healing. I think this is just better than ever taking Heartsteel in most games. Like, I mean, it kind of like synergizes together anyway, but something I'll talk about at some points later. So I think Heartsteel is not that good. But this is just a really like it's raw stats that is like always good on a tank. You should always be happy to see that. Next we have Critical Rhythm. This is a crits augment. It gives you flat 25% crits and it gives you basically attack speed for 6 seconds. It's like the Ginsu's passive. Like you just get ramping attack speed every time you crit up to 60%. This is pretty good. You can probably drop a zeal item with it. It gives you like it's just really solid. If your champion actually auto attacks, some crit champions don't really care about that, so in which case it's not that good. But even then, the 25% crit chance is like it's not bad to take at all. Like if you have to take this on like a Smolder or like I don't know, like a Samira, it's not that bad. Then we have Ethereal Weapon. This is a really fun one. It's hard to use and it's gonna take a lot of like planning and like yeah, like I have to test it myself to try to solve this one for everyone. I mean, people who play Arena already know about a lot of stuff, but the context in ARAM is different because some champions are like really good at applying this. So yeah, and you have less items to work with in Arena, but there are still a lot of good on-hit effects that you can consider. If you can apply Blade of the Ruined King, like from a brand, like it's just there's some synergies that are too good. What's really good is if you hit something like Adapt, where you basically lose almost all the drawbacks of building these on-hit items that you otherwise might have some awkwardness with. Because like if you're playing an AP champion and you build an AD on-hit item, it's a little awkward. But there are some good on-hits you can build. You can build Static, you can build like a Hydra item, Terminus, get some free resists and some pen and on-hit damage. There's also some on-hit augments that this works really well with. Yeah, it's just really niche. And you have to have experience with like the item system and augments. You have to be really comfortable with like knowing what you can do. But it's really powerful if you recognize the right situation for it. Next we have Magic Missile. This is one that I think a lot of people love. I think it's a little bit overrated, but only a little bit. It's still very good. Unlike in Arena where this had no cooldown, this has a pretty considerable cooldown to the point where you're only gonna get one per cast. That said, if you're like this is good for poke. This isn't like broken anymore on stuff like Brand. I mean, it is, but like not like the same way. This is also good on like something like Cassia where you can spam. That's once per cast. If you just cast a lot, that also works. The damage is pretty good. It has a multiplier based on distance, but that isn't gonna matter that much. But this ramps up a pretty good amount of damage, and I think most champions that like do ability damage somewhat reliably like this a lot. Like the only criteria is like you want to take this on a champion that like is gonna be hitting the enemy rather often. Like you want some kind of poke. I wouldn't take this on like a LeBlanc because this isn't like at least over something else. Next we have Marks Mage. If you actually have the means to auto attack as an AP damage dealer, this is really good. It's a bit nerfed compared to Arena, but I mean it's still very good. You just have to like actually be able to auto attack. Some people get baited into taking this, thinking they can auto more than they actually do. But if you do auto with this, this can be very, very good. Like, it's really good on something like a Gwen or like a Kale, like a Twisted Fate. Like you have to actually play around the autoing, which is something that people forget to do. Next we have Minion Mancer. This is really good because there's a lot of really good minions. It's just Depends though on like which minions, because yeah, I think it's based on Malzahar because like it gives them damage, but they still get one shots. It doesn't really do anything. But what's good about this is that this makes your minions more tanky and they do more damage. So on something like a Yorick, it's really impressive because like his things are actually hard to kill. On big pets like Tibbers or like Daisy, it's really good because it makes them really tanky on top of the damage that they do. Yeah, there's a lot of really good minions that you can buff with it. And I think in most cases it's one of the best things that you can hit on those champions. Next we have Night Stalking. This is kind of like Executioner Light. This is old Duskblade passive, which lets you be invisible after getting a takedown. So like Executioner, like you can get an assist and this gives you a reset. This helps you get the safety. This helps you kind of reposition. As a combo with Executioner, it's absolutely broken. On its own, I think this is the lesser of the two. However, this can still be very annoying. This also has some synergies with like stealth bonuses plus like voltaic. I mean, that is a stealth bonus, but I just want to emphasize that like this is an item that it works really well with this because it's basically a reset. Okay, this is really good on like fighters mostly. It can be okay on backline too if you actually have like enough move speed, slash enough like combat mobility, I guess. You can also, because you can get the safety with it as well. Next we have Perseverance. Perseverance is, I think, one of the most underrated tank options in the game. This just heals a lot. Like this is kind of like a mini Warmogs, except it works in combat. If you're low, it's even better. This has synergy with other healing bonuses like Spirit Visage. And yeah, I think just over the course of a game, this is going to provide more value than a lot of other things like Heartsteel. Another thing is that once you get to the point, like if you build correctly, this also multiplies better because, okay, so what I mean by build properly is I mean like build resistances slash damage reduction in the right spots. So like you build Randuins when the enemy has crit, you build Force of Nature when the enemy actually has a lot of magic damage sources and stuff like that, to the point where like the damage you take is lower, so having healing gives you more effective health. It's a concept that's like kind of hard to explain, and I think people in like the TFT community are kind of like understanding it, and in a lot of other games they understand that like synergy where healing is effective health, so sometimes that's more valuable than having health because it's like ongoing. Next we have Recursion. There really isn't much to say about this. It's just really good for most champions. Any champion that is balanced around abilities is going to appreciate having more haste. Haste can be hard to come by in some cases, and I don't think you're really going to complain about being able to cast your abilities more often. Like, I don't know, there's like no downside, and it's just a really useful stat to have. Next we have Soul Siphon. This is another crit one. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but this is, it gives you 25% crit chance, and then your critical strikes gain 12% lifesteal. This is kind of buggy slash I don't know what the way it works with some abilities where like you don't actually get the healing. This works on auto attacks 100%. I don't know what the intention is with like some abilities that are supposed to like this does not work on Smolder Q even though it should. Like anything that's supposed to apply lifesteal, it sometimes doesn't. So that's why it's like a little lower. I had this higher, but it's been a little problematic for me. But yeah, it's pretty good. It gives like on the champions that want it, it gives you everything you want. It gives you access to early lifesteal when you otherwise would lack it. So something like a Draven or like a Samira, they really like this. Or I don't know, maybe not Samira if it doesn't work on her ult. Like crit champions have a lot of good things. Like it's better than other things are for other classes. Next we have Upgrade Hubris. This is one I thought was like overrated, but after like kind of playing around with it, I realized it's pretty good. I still think it's overrated, but its effects are like actually pretty interesting. So when you proc Hubris, you get a heal, like a small heal, but then you also get move speed. I think the big thing is that you get this bonus move speed for the duration, because you have pretty high uptime all the time. Like in ARAM, you're gonna be fighting, so you're not really gonna drop stacks very much, and you can get to a lot of move speed. This works pretty well. If you can get a lot of stacks, the heal is also quite nice. This has synergy with like other augments and stuff that like you're gonna reset. So yeah, I would say this is pretty good. Like at least compared to the other options you have, I now think that it's not that bad. If you don't really care about the heal, it's a little less valuable, but the move speed is like the main benefit, so that's why it's kind of okay on most champions that would build Hubris. Next we have Vampirism. This is one that's been like really buggy and problematic, but it's really good. Basically, this is a stat check. if your champion has the ability to output constant damage, it's completely OP. You just won't die. But you need to like you need to have not enough damage on the enemy team slash not enough crowd control that can shut you down slash like you need to play really well and like constantly output damage. But if you can, this is a lot of healing. You are gonna be unkillable. Lastly, we have vulnerability. This just has a lot of stuff that you can do with it. It's more niche than you think it is, but in those niches, it is very good. So damage dealt by items and damage over time effects now can critically strike. Additionally, gain crit strike chance. So if you're a champion with a damage over time, this is really, really strong because there's like no condition. There are a lot of items that can do a lot with having this crit. So if you have something like Blade of the Ruined King, if that's crits, that does a lot of the damage, especially because you can build something like Infinity Edge and you are increasing that crit strike damage even more. I think those are the main two cases where you want it. If you don't have the means to build more crit, it becomes a little difficult. But I mean, with Rite of Ruin, you can get to a good amount of crit or from other augments. Yeah, item wise, there's like I said, there's a decent amount. The burn items, there's other item damage like Hurricane, Kraken, Cyclic Sword, Titanic, Mermana. There's a lot of ways you can get item damage. So if you have a means to play around it, it's really good. You don't want to build too many because you need that balance between enough crits and enough like actual ways to apply it. So you have to. This is a very like build intensive augments where you have to plan accordingly, and it can be pretty hard to take later into the game if you don't have a good setup for it. But the ceiling for this is really high, and this can solo win you games. Next in B tier, with just like solid ones, we have Apex Inventor. I think this one's a little overrated just because of how nerfed it is compared to Arena. There's also less things that you can build heist on, so it's only good on a few things. There's like there's a lot of items that can use it, but you have to consider how they work together and like which items you're actually gonna build. So like some champions or some classes of champions build enough of them where it's good. Like tanks can build Fimbulbencer and Unending Despair, and that's usually pretty good. Fighters can build like Sundered Sky plus like Eclipse, maybe like Edge of Night. Some mages like you can go like this is good with Ludens. It's gonna be good with like Zanyas, Banshees. Oh, one that's like kind of underrated is Mandate. I think Imperial Mandate's really good with this. But yeah, this one it's just really good. But there's just a lot less to work with, and it's really nerfed, so it's gonna be in B tier. And it takes a lot of investment too. I think that's the main drawback. Like you actually have to play around it to get enough value, and that value is like good, but it's not as good as like these S tier ones, and like it takes more. Like I would rather like for instance, I think Vulnerability has more high roll than Apex does. Divine Intervention. This is like a very you need to be very very good with how you use it, but if you use it well, it's really good. It's just like Tower Gult, or a really well timed Tower Gult just instantly wins you fights, but you have to like be very mindful of it. This is auto cast, so if you see it's coming, you can kind of plan and engage, and you can do a lot of work with it. This can sometimes be clutch in disengage, but it's obviously harder to like actually play around because disengage suggests that the enemy team is engaging and you can't control that. But yeah, just of how much it can completely negate the enemy team's efforts at times, it's really good, but it's really hard to use properly and requires team coordination. Next we have Flashy. It's pretty good. Like 3 flashes, low cooldown. Some champions just play so much better in fights with the multiple flashes. This can let certain assassins kill multiple targets. A lot of the times, like, target access is a problem for tanks, like assassins, fighters. So this helps a lot. Even defensively, as on a backliner, this can be pretty good to counter the exact same thing. Yeah. Some champions have combos with flash that you have more of, so that's also really good. But yeah, you have to be skilled with how you use your flash. Next, we have From Beginning to End. I think the main thing about From Beginning to End is that it's pretty safe to take, and I think compared to like the other safe, like the rune ones, this was probably the best of those. Dark Harvest and First Strike, they work quite well together, and like it kind of scales pretty well because First Strike will help you generate some gold. Dark Harvest helps you scale, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. Yeah, there isn't really much to say here. It's low. It's pretty low on risk, as long as you have the means to actually hit the enemy and proc it. Get Excited. It's Jinx passive, pretty much. The main bonus is the move speed. like any assist can give you move speed, and the total X speed is pretty good, but that's more niche, and not many champions use it as well as Jink this stat. Maybe something like a Kog'Maw would be really good, or like a Varus, but there aren't that many champions that like care too much about that. But the move speed itself is really valuable. Now, compared to something like Night Stalker or Executioner, I think it's a bit worse than those. Next we have Impassable. I think this is a super underrated one. I think these are just really solid to have on any engaged champion. Both of them, they work well together because Glacial Augment helps you hit your Aftershock. They proc at the same time, so it's not like that's difficult to use. And they don't change anything, and they provide a lot. So I think more people should be comfortable taking this instead of trying to roll for something that they think is better when it's not. Next time, it's critical. This is just 50% crit, which is just, it's good, really good. It's especially good early game. You just need to you need to be okay with having only 2 crit items. Because you can overcap, but I mean, you're not going to get anything out of it. So like dropping 1 crit item's easy, but dropping 2 is like a little harder because some champions are balanced around like 3 item core. But I mean, if you can get away with just like Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon, or something like that, that's usually pretty good. There's like a lot of other items that you can build that I think people are going to forget that you have the option of. Like, you have the option to build like Bloodthirster and Bork. You can build Scimitar. You can build like Edge of Knights or Zanyas. Like there's a lot of things that you can consider that you might not otherwise do because you're limited based on how many crit items you have. But this can really do a lot for your items. Next we have Keystone Conjurer. This one's like, it's a good poke tool. It doesn't do too much. Keystone Conjurer gives you Comet and Airy. It's good for poke and good for damage in general if you just have the means to do it. But it's not like anything outstanding. However, like I don't think you're gonna be upset to have it. Like it'll do its job. Another one that's very similar is OK Boomerang. This is just free damage. It's not like a ton, but it can be annoying, especially if you don't have poke. This is auto casts, so you don't actually have to think about it. You just have to walk kind of close to enemies, and it can do a little chunk of damage. Next, I have Restless Restoration. This is one that I thought was pretty bad, but like after like looking at it, it's pretty okay. In combat, it's kind of hard to use because it's hard to move a lot, but out of combat, it's pretty good. It's kind of like a Warmogs. This is pretty much like Perseverance, but like I said, worse in combat, but better out of combat, and that's kind of the trade-off. I personally would rather have Perseverance, but like having Restless Restoration isn't that bad. Next, I have Scope Your Weapons. We're starting to scale a little bit better, but it's still not like super crazy. This can be pretty good. This makes much more of a difference than Scope Your Weapons. It's just that some other like there's on champions that want Scope Your Weapons, there are better things that they can hit. Like I think most of the crit champions would probably prefer like a damage multiplier / like a crit augment than this. But yeah, like on hit champions might prefer on hit stuff over this. The on hit gold ones aren't that as good. But Rage is really good. For melee, this is really good. It just kind of depends. Like you take this if this will make a difference in your ability to do damage. Sometimes you might see people take this when you don't actually need the bonus range because like you are able to hit anyways. Or sometimes like you're still not able to hit even if you have this. However, this helps bridge the gap. Next we have Skill Sniper. This one is just, it's hard to use sometimes. Like it's kind of bait on some champions, but if you are really good at using it, if you space really well, this can be really good. You have to be wary of mana a lot of the times because sometimes, like, even if you proc it multiple times, you still have to bear the mana cost of getting it for free. But yeah, like, this can be really good for Harass. I'm thinking like a Varus or like a Jace. It's really good on those. Next we have Snowball Upgrade. This one's a little underrated. What this does is it gives you a bit of haste on your snowball, and it also gives you a better snowball. This does a pretty good amount of damage. The most important thing to think about here. Like, this is an extra decent burst of bonus damage. Some champions that can get a lot of AP or a lot of AD, this is like straight up a better version of one of their spells. It's also an AoE slow, so this can kind of engage. You can just throw it out. Like, this lets you like treat your snowball as like an actual ability, even if you're not using it for the gap close. Next we have Tank Engine. This is just high risk, high reward. If you have, like, if you're doing well in the game, this is really, really good. However, sometimes this just does nothing because you're getting shit on anyway. So if you, like, in the high roll scenarios, this is really, really OP. But like I said, this is also has this chance to be like actually worthless. But I've had games where like you can get up to like 10,000 health with this for free, which is really disgusting. However, it's risky. Some games you think you can play around it, but you can't. So twice thrice. This one is okay. Twice thrice. Basic attacks generate a stack, and then at 2 stacks, your next attack consumes all stacks to apply on hits better. If you have good on hits to apply, this is pretty good. It's better like the more on hits you have, but this one on its own isn't like super crazy, but it's pretty good. Like it's fine on the champions that would want it, but I think other augments do better for other types of champions. Last we have Upgrade Gene. This is basically a worse Divine Sunderer. It's pretty situational because it has max health scaling. You kind of need the enemy team to be tanky to actually get enough damage. Otherwise, I think other augments might be better options. But yeah, against tanks, this can be pretty good. Overall, it's just not super influential. Okay, C tier. These aren't like terrible, but like these are a lot harder to use, a lot more situational, and they just don't necessarily provide that much value. Okay, but starting off, we have cheating. This lets you recall, and this is pretty okay. The problem is that you don't really need to do that. Like, mostly your gameplay is gonna be around like the general ARAM playstyle anyway. So giving up a gold augments to be able to recall isn't really that crazy, because a lot of the times you're just gonna die, and like, or like you're okay with dying in ARAM to buy items, and then like if you recall, it'll take a while, then you have to come back. I just think overall it's not like bad to take, but it's not really worth a gold augment. Next we have Dawnbringers. The problem with Dawnbringers is that I think this is a worse version of Escape Plan. It heals you a decent amount, but a lot of the time there's gonna be anti-heals, so like you're not even getting the full value. The cooldown isn't that high, but I mean, I just think other tank options are better usually. However, there were some things that like would bug it out and it make it proc a lot more often than it should. However, I think that has been fixed. Next we have Demon's Dance. I just think that it's kind of hard to use these optimally. You don't really get that much healing compared to like any other source of healing, and you're not really getting that much health. You're getting a little bit of move speed, a little bit of bonus damage. I think the max health is pretty good. I think in comparison to something like Heartsteel Quest, this is kind of underrated because like almost the same thing, but it's not that influential, and a lot of champions would rather have something else. Next we have Firebrand. This is like an interesting one because I think this is really good against tanky comps, but otherwise this isn't really that good. I think it's a ramping thing, which you don't always need. And yeah, like the main point is to be able to kill tanks, but that's just not really gonna be the case a lot of the time. And then there's also a lot of other tools you can use to do that. So this is fixing a problem that isn't necessarily going to exist. And then on its own, like against like normal like lower HP targets, this doesn't really contribute that much damage. Steal Your Heart. This is probably controversial, but I think this is bait. 1, you have to build Heartsteel. 2, you have to get 350 stacks for you to get any value. And then 3, you bonus. Okay, so you get the bonus health. You get 200% bonus health from this item, but that doesn't really do that much. Like, if you have a good game to build Heartsteel, then this can be good because you can get a respectable amount of health. But in most cases, people build Heartsteel when they don't need to, and then they take this augment when Heartsteel wasn't even a good item that game, and you barely do anything. Sometimes people would take this as a first item and never proc it at all. It's really dependent on how good of a game it is to build Heartsteel. And even in like the best scenarios, if you get the triple stacks and you go from like 600 stacks to like 1800 stacks, that can be pretty good amount of health. But like that at that point, that's just a celestial body. So like you need a really good spots to take this. I think the amount of stats that this gives isn't as good as people think it is. Next we have Slow and Steady. So this is one where like there are some like really good exploits. In most cases, this otherwise doesn't really do much, and it actually hurts you more than it helps. This sets to your base attack speed to 0.65, and this converts bonus attack speed to AD. This, in most cases, this isn't going to actually amount to much. However, there are some interactions that make it really good, like with Jace, where you can press range W and get to the max attack speed camp, which gets converted to AD, and then you can use that AD to do a lot of damage with your abilities. Some champions don't work with it, or like they don't get the drawback. So like Zeri, for instance, works exactly the same as normal, but she gets bonus AD at 0 drawback. So she gets the bonuses of attack speed and the bonuses of the AD. So that's another synergy. But I think most other champions are crippled by this. Like there aren't that many champions that would build attack speed, but don't want to attack fast. So because of that, and the conversion isn't high enough. I think it needs to be a higher conversion for it to be worth a gold augment. But then this stuff also needs to be fixed. So overall, like it's very, very niche. Next we have spiritual purification. This one's pretty good in some melee comps. It does okay damage. It just a lot of the champions that I think it would be good on, it's not that good on. You need to be able to like actually hit enemy. Like you need to like get a takedown, but you also have to like actually participate in their death. So the explosion is okay damage, and the slow is really nice, but it's very situational. Like into melee teams where you can actually hit multiple people with the explosions, then it becomes good. But this doesn't help you kill stuff faster. Basically, if you have the means to proc it pretty easily, it's an okay safe option. But a lot of the times you're also just getting nothing out of the explosion because sometimes like there's just nothing nearby. It's really situational. Next we have Thread the Needle. This is pretty good as a default option. The problem is that it's not enough. You're still gonna want other sources of pen. I think if it were buffed a little bit, it would be better. Like if it were buffed to like 20. But Thread the Needle gives you 18% armor pen and magic pen. Having both doesn't really matter in a lot of cases. There are a couple hybrid champions like Katarina that can use it okay, but otherwise it's not like that significant. The main problem is that, like I said, it doesn't remove the need to still get a pen item. So I think this needs to be buffed a little bit so that you can kind of get away with not building a pen item for this to be good. Like I think 20 would be a start. You might have to go higher though. I see it's Transmute Prismatic. Same thing as all the Transmute ones. This is just really risky. Some Prismatics just are going to be useless on your champion. So it's really high risk, especially because golds are pretty valuable. So if you high roll or if you RNG a bad prismatic, like not only do you have a useless prismatic, you also are down a gold. So it's not really worth. In most cases, this is like a last resort. There are a lot of high roll options, and some champions probably have a lot less risk than others. But overall, I'm not someone that wants to add more risk to an already RNG heavy game mode. Finally, we have With Haste. This just takes too long to get to the point where it's good. It's hard to get a lot of haste, but you can end up with a lot of move speed. The main thing is that this is really heavy investments, and it takes a while. Move speed is really, really powerful, but you need to be also really good at using it. Finally, D tier, we just have ones I think are not very good. We have Big Brain, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a joke. So you gain a shield equal to 100% of your AP that lasts until destroyed, and it's replenished upon respawn. The problem is that this gets procced very easily. So, and then afterwards you just have nothing. Like there's too much sources of poke and stuff that it's really hard to warrant taking this over anything else. This can be okay if you're playing specifically against like an assassin. That's like the only thing that's gonna threaten you for most of the game. But that's pretty niche. Next we have Holy Fire. The problem with Holy Fire is that it doesn't do enough damage. It takes too long to do anything. Most champions aren't going to heal or shield fast enough for this to be like that good. Like maybe a Soraka, but like this has to be a heal or shield from an ability, and the burn just doesn't do that much. Like at the end of a game, this does barely any damage, even in like the best spots. So I would rather you take like literally anything else. The last gold augment we have Lightning Strikes. This is like an okay multiplier. The problem is that most cases you're not getting to this 4.0 attack speed, which means you're not getting this, and that's kind of a lot of the value. This bonus attack speed multiplier isn't bad, but it's not really that good either. Like there's very few champions that would want this. Like I think Vayne might want this, maybe a Kog'Maw, but I think I'd also take literally any other of those types of augments, like any other unhits / attack speed augments than I would Lightning Strikes. I think this is just a product of the ARAM environment, honestly. It's the need for like certain situational items is really high, like stuff like Zanya's or like QSS or like lifesteal, that I just don't think this is worth it at all. Like I think every time I see it taken, I've never seen anyone hit the 4.0 attack speed, and overall, like, I've just heard only complaints about it.